Hello friends, welcome to SQL Server tutorial. You are watching advanced select query series. Now we are at the final part of the video, pivot query. So here in this video we will see how to achieve CrossTab query result via pivot queries. So do not worry about what is CrossTab query or CrossTab result. Once you finish with the video, you will come to know what is meant by CrossTab query result. These are all the video decks from previous series. We started with the formatting the query, then we looked into case, when, then structure. Then we moved on to subquery and main query. How main query can feed record by record information to subquery, thereby achieving some result. Then we talked about using the variables and creating the SQL script and how to use the variables in different part of the select query. Then we saw how to use the paging query. That will be useful for front-end application, and instead of forming the where condition based on the IDs, the front-end now can directly use the offset and fetch next option to perform the pagination. Now let's look at pivot queries. The pivot operator helps in generating the CrossTab query result. So CrossTab query result is kind of a summary result, and in CrossTab result the column and row together forms a plotting area. Say for example, you want to know the sales of a particular subcategory or product category, and if you see here, you can present the year 2000, 2001. So category 1, category 2 and category 3, and if a new category is added, then you can use category 4, and in this slot you will fill the number of sales. So by looking at this CrossTab result, you can easily say category 2 on year 2001 made this much amount of sales. So that's what we are going to see, how to achieve the CrossTab result using the pivot operator. To understand the CrossTab, let's execute the below query in SQL Server. Here if you see, we are taking store name, title and sales quantity. So those are all the three columns we are picking. One is the store name and what is the book title and how many quantity was ordered. From here if you see, the table involved is sales, and we are making inner join with the stores, and the join is based on store ID on sales table as well as store ID on stores. So sales table and stores, we are making the inner join. After that we are introducing one more table, titles, then sales.title ID, title.title ID. So that's how we are linking the tables, order by store name and title. So if you see here, we are getting the store name, title and quantity, and the result will look like this. Let me delete the table part. So here you can see the book names, store name. Actually the first column is a store name, so this is a store name. Then we are printing the book titles, and in the third column and in the third column we are printing the quantity. So at present this is how the result is displayed. So store name, book title, and the number of quantity. So if you see here, we ordered it based on store name and then title. So all the store names are displayed or first sorted, and inside the store name we are displaying the book title. By using the pivot query, we can restructure the data. Restructure means here if you see the data are displayed column wise and sales quantity also displayed in the third column. So restructuring data means distinct of title in every row's first column. If you see the are distinct of store name. So it depends how you are performing the CrossTab. So distinct of title in every row's first column and all the store names as a separate column. So that's how we are going to restructure here. If you see, we will display the title T1, T2, T3, T4, and if you see, these are all the distinct titles. Then store names S1, S2, and S3. If you see here, we restructured the data. So whatever data was previously displayed by the query, that we are going to restructure is. So the restructure is done in such a way that first column displays all the title, then every column displays the store names. So inside we will specify the quantity of sales in each cell. So if there is no sales of title T2 by store 1, then we will replace this with 0. So this is what we want to achieve here. And if you see, this is the title, and title is displayed in the very first column. Then you can see there is a separate column for each stores. So these are all the store names: Barons, BookBeat, Document, Redbooks. So all these are store names, and here are the titles. And then each cell. So that means these two variation, that means the book title and store name together forms a cell. So for example, if I take this specific cell, we can state that the title, this is T1, let's state the title T1 sold by this specific store is 15. So likewise we can fill all the cells. So that's what here we are stating. By using the pivot query, we can restructure the data. So this is our normal query, join based query. That data we can restructure. That means distinct of title in every row's first column, this one. Then all store names as a separate column. So this is the store name displayed in separate column. Then in each cell we can place the quantity sold. We like to achieve this below result, and this is what called a CrossTab query or CrossTab result. Alright, now let's go to the demo and see how to achieve this. Now we are at SQL Server Management Studio. We will go for new query, and here we pick pubs database. So let's first review the result of the query. Here we are making use of the tables sales, stores, as well as titles. And if you see here, so breakbeat, that's the store name that repeats 4 times. We already sorted it based on store name and title. Breakbeat, which made sales for 4 titles, and the quantities are 30, 25, 10 and 15. So likewise you can see for other store name as well. Next, if you see, we need to decide the CrossTab column as well as the first column. For that, here we are picking distinct of titles as well as store name. So when I execute both of these query, here if you see titles, there are 18 titles, so that can go as a first column. And the store name, if you see, there are only 6 store name, so this is good for a CrossTab column. We can place 4 CrossTab column. So it's not mandatory, but if you need, you can keep this store name as a first column and all these 18 column as a CrossTab column. So decide first column and the CrossTab column. There are 18 titles. Here you can see we can keep it as a first column, but we can see only 6 stores. So this is the store name, only 6 stores are there. It can be a CrossTab column. So we decided which one is the CrossTab column and which one is the first column to form a CrossTab result. Next, if you see here in step 3, select title, then whatever is the result of the stores, there are 6 store names, right? So all those store name, we are placing it in the select list itself. Select title. Title comes from this content. That's the first column. Second column, these are all the CrossTab column, and we are hard coding it. Baron, book beat. So all this entry, we are hard coding it here. Select from. Then we are opening the parenthesis here and we are closing it here. So do not worry about these red squiggly. We will rectify this. So inside this open and parenthesis, we just have our previous query result. So that's our first step, right? We placed that. So we want to arrange this query result based on the pivot. Pivot, we haven't yet introduced it. In the next step, we will do that. Next, we need to decide what to fill in the cell. So if you see here, select title. So this stuff we already formed from. So the same query, whatever we did previously, the only stuff is we removed this order by column in this step. So we are treating this as data. So select title, first column, then the next columns acts as CrossTab column, and we hard coded it. From we are supplying the data and we call that as data. Next we are introducing the pivot. So the pivot operator is useful to fill the cells. So what we are doing using the pivot here is a sum of quantity aggregate we are applying for store name. So the sum is applied for store name. So this is the pivot operator, sum of quantity for store name. So we are applying the sum for the store name, say for example book beat. The sum will be calculated in supplying the CrossTab result. So if you see here, the sum of quantity is applied for store name and store name list here we are providing. So that's the use of pivot operator. We talked about pivot and aggregate function for specific store name, and we supply the store name list here, which is nothing but our CrossTab column list here, right? So pivot, aggregate function, pivot for which CrossTab column store name, then specify the list of store name as pivot, and finally we provide order by title. Alright, now we will execute this. Okay, forget about this, and we can still execute it. So here you can see the CrossTab result. First, all the titles are displayed here, then all the store names are displayed. For example, if book beat made a sales of this specific title multiple time, then the sum will be displayed here. And in this CrossTab result, you are seeing multiple null entries. We will replace that null entries with 0 now. So if you look at the select list, previously we just displayed the store names. And if you refer here, this is the store name. We simply copy pasted these store names from the query result. Alright, so now what we are doing, we are applying the isNull function. So title we are displaying as it is, that's the first column. Then for the CrossTab column we are using the isNull of boron 0 as boron. So that's how we place the select list. So this is the one which will form the cell, and that cell is formed based on the pivot operator and sum of quantity. When it returns null, that time we are using the isNull function. So if it is a null, we are replacing it with 0, and we are providing the alias name. We don't want to get column name like this, that's why we use alias. So that's all. This is the way we applied isNull for all the column. Now if we execute this pivoted query, we will be getting all the sales in a CrossTab way. So now you can see BookBeat. It's so old, but is it user friendly and cooking with the computers. So DocuMeet, if you see, it made sales of more books. You can see that here. So this is the advantage of CrossTab query, and you can use this CrossTab query for any table. Here we just used it for sales of book as well as stores. Likewise, you can apply CrossTab query for sales history as well. Say for example, in the first column you can use the year, and in the CrossTab column you can use the product categories. That's all here in this video. Thank you for watching. Bye.